Chapter 7, The Fire Within. They called him Verector now. The name, roughly translated, meant the wolf who walks like a man, or, more precisely, the wolf who leads without chains. It was a name born in battle, spoken first in the moments after the clash in the Red Valley, when Peter stood over his defeated enemy, his wolves flanking him like shadows of resolve. By the time they returned to the village, it had passed from warrior to elder to child, carried on breathless lips and wonder-filled eyes. Verector, and so they celebrated. The village came alive with firelight. Torches were lit on every level of the tree homes, casting a flickering orange glow across bark and fur and bone. Drums pounded like hearts in rhythm. Warriors painted in ash and blood danced in spirals around the great fire pit. Skins heavy with meat and spice were thrown on the flames, filling the air with savory smoke. Peter sat near the center, not as an outsider, but as a guest of honor. Ashmark rested at his side, calm and content, jaw resting on crossed forelegs. Trip lounged nearby, soaking in the warmth of both flame and admiration. Even the younger wolves, those who once growled and shied from him, now brushed against his hand as they passed. Children watched him from a distance. Young warriors studied him, mimicking his posture, his gestures. And Kaylani watched them all. She hadn't approached him since the battle, not formally, but Peter had felt her eyes on him at every turn. Sharp as a blade, but no longer seeking blood. She watched as he taught a boy how to signal a wolf with hand gestures, watched as he stopped a drunken skirmish between two young men with only a look, watched as he chose to eat last, allowing others to take first. She was measuring him still. But now, it wasn't just a test of strength. It was something deeper. The celebration waned as night deepened. The younger children were carried off to bed. The elders retreated to high platforms above. Only the fire remained bright now, surrounded by warriors whose songs had turned to murmurs, whose eyes gleamed with a dance of flame and drink. Peter sat alone for a moment, gazing into fire, the wolf cloak draped across his shoulders. He almost didn't hear her approach. Kaylani sat beside him, quiet and calm. For a long time neither of them spoke. The crackling of flame and distant howls filled the space between them. Then she said, "The wolves dream differently now." Peter looked at her. Her face was bare tonight. No paint, no blood. Just skin, smooth and shadowed by the fire. Her hair was loose, falling in dark waves past her shoulders. He answered softly, "They're not just beasts." She tilted her head. "No, they never were. We forgot that." Peter watched the fire. "Maybe we all did." She leaned closer, not aggressively, not to dominate, but to be near. Her shoulder brushed his. Her hand, rough from battle, calloused from climbing and carving, rested beside us on the log. Close, but not touching. He didn't move. "I have not shared fire with anyone in many seasons," she said. Peter looked at her, but didn't interrupt. She turned to him. Her golden eyes weren't hard tonight. They held something else. Not vulnerability, exactly, but honesty, a rare thing in a world built on strength. "You are not one of us," she said again, but her voice was soft. "No," he agreed, "but I'm here." She studied his face, then leaned in slightly. Her forehead touched his briefly, deliberately. It was not a kiss. It was older than that, an ancient gesture. One wolves made when bonding, one leader's made before the hunt, one mate's made when words had no meaning left. Then she stood, without a word. She walked into the darkness, disappearing among the trees. Peter remained at the fire, heart steady, thoughts whirling. She hadn't asked him to follow. She hadn't needed to. Chapter 8. The Crown Storm. Peter no longer walked behind Kaylani. He walked beside her. The shift was subtle, but the entire village noticed. In the moons that followed the battle in the Red Valley, Peter had become more than a foreign presence. He had become a fixture. His face was carved into the bark pillars beside Kaylani's, marked with the ochre sigil of the Verector. Warriors came to him for advice. Hunters sought his aid in training their wolves. Even the elders, cautious and tradition-bound, had begun to treat him with cautious reverence. Ashmark's pack had swelled in size, not by force, but by choice. Wolves once tethered by fear or pain now came to Peter in the quiet of dawn, waiting for instruction, for praise. He gave them both. Kailani watched it all with the eyes of a storm held in check. She had not spoken of that night at the fire. No words of love or ownership had been uttered, but she shared her tent with him now, walked with him in silence through the high ridges, listened to his counsel in war meetings. They sparred sometimes, blade to blade, sweat to sweat. When she cut him, she laughed. When he bested her, she smiled like it was a secret. They were two alphas, circling the same flame. But not all eyes admired them. Whispers had begun in the darker corners of the village. Among the warriors who once stood closest Kalani, there were tight jaws and wary glances. Some said he was changing the tribe too quickly. That wolves who used to bite without command now waited to be told. That men who once trusted their instincts now asked questions before they acted. It was not the way, they said. It was not the old blood. And it wasn't just words. One morning, a warning was left at the edge of Peter's den. A broken bone carved with the symbol of the Bakari, an enemy tribe from the eastern cliffs. The bone had been smeared with a crimson dye that smelled of decay. A message, or a threat. Either way, it meant one thing. War was coming. Peter stood before the council flame, Kailani at his side, as the tribe prepared for the storm. "This is not a raid," said Elder Thal, his voice heavy with age and dread. "The Drakari do not leave signs. If they are showing teeth, they mean to tear out throats." Kailani nodded grimly. Peter listened. He had seen signs, too. Burnt trees in the southern woods. Scouts who never returned. Packs of wolves, untethered, feral, driven out of their dens and fleeing west. The Drakari were coming not just with warriors, but with hunger. Kailani turned to Peter. "What would you do, Veraktor?" All eyes turned to him. He looked at the people gathered. So wild, so strong, and yet vulnerable in ways they did not see. They were brave but divided, proud but stubborn. He saw fear behind many faces. "I would prepare," he said calmly. "Train the wolves to fight as a pack, not as weapons. Teach your warriors to listen to one another and to their beasts. We defend, we hold the land. But if we divide ourselves, we lose. And if they will not listen," asked one of Kalani's former champions, his jaw clenched in silent challenge. Peter met his gaze without blinking. "Then they'll follow when we survive." That night, as the village settled into uneasy quiet, Peter and Kalani stood on a high ridge overlooking the forest. A storm rolled in far beyond the horizon, lit by distant flashes of violet lightning. "Do you regret staying?" she asked quietly. "No," he answered, "but I regret that we might not have peace longer." She was quiet for a long time. Then, "You've made us stronger, better." He turned to her. "You've let me." Kailani reached out, fingers brushing his. She didn't kiss him. She didn't have to. They stood in silence, fingers entwined, the future a swirling storm before them. Thank you for listening to The Wolf Who Walks Like a Man. I hope you enjoyed Peter's journey from soldier to survivor and the beginnings of his destiny among the tribes. If you like this story, please give the video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more adventures like this one. Your support helps bring more sci-fi and fantasy tales to life. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.